This hourly segment is brought to you by Scott Tucker Solutions and his show Retirement Decoded. Sunday mornings at 8. Learn more at scotttuckersolutions.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
Insert Democrat socialist here.
Runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. That's theme music means it's time for a weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. In Minnesota in 2022, after Governor Field Marshal Tim Walz was reelected, he and his fellow travelers raised taxes, redistributed income, made Minnesota a trans refuge.
Big celebrations for that, too, remember?
1% surcharge on investment income over $1 million. New family and medical leave entitlement financed by a 0.88% increase in the payroll tax. Raised the top marginal rate in the state of Minnesota to 10.85% on investment income and 10.73% on wages, which is among the highest in the country. And last week, Tuesday, they lost 3 seats in the House, resulting in the House being evenly split 67-67. Wow, Minnesota 67-67. A liberal state like Minnesota 67-67. What's Illinois in the House? 78-40. But in Minnesota now, Democrats can't raise taxes willy-nilly. In Michigan, you have the same sort of lurch left, replacing the state's right-to-work law. Republicans flipped the state house in Michigan. Republicans now control the state house in Michigan, despite being outspent in races by nearly 4-1. Oh, money's not the only issue. Interesting. In fact, the GOP picked up a seat in the UP that Democrats had held for more than 70 years. In Vermont, that's the home of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Republicans flipped 17 seats in the House and 6 in the state Senate, the most in at least 30 years, to end Democrats' supermajority there. In Illinois, as I said, the big news is that new casino in East Hazelcrest opened.
That's going to solve all the problems in the world.
Exactly right.
Tables are open from 8 o'clock at night or it was 8 a.m. in the morning to 4 a.m.
Until they get their 24/7 go ahead. But, I mean, that's the key. I mean, we're going to gamble our way to prosperity. It doesn't matter what the distribution in the state legislature is, the General Assembly here, 78-40, 40-19. It doesn't matter that it didn't move, even though Trump shaved his margin of defeat in Illinois by a full 8 points, 2020 to 2024. Just everybody declare victory. We're very proud of holding on to our 40 seats. We're very proud of holding on to our 70 seats. The Republican Party at the state level here is like the Chicago public school system. You could spend $10 billion or you can spend nothing and the results would be the same. For more on this, please be joined now by Ted. Ted, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy.
Not much of a balance of power change here. Did you see anything electorally that gives you any hope for Illinois' tomorrow?
Certainly not in terms of the state house, right? I mean, when we didn't pick up a seat, despite that big move in support for Trump, and that's despite all the attacks that Trump had against him from the media, from Pritzker, right? I mean, the opposition to Trump has been so strong here, maybe stronger than anywhere else in the country. And yet he was able to pick up all those votes and pick up share. But for that to not translate into anything positive at the state house level is I guess it's a real indictment of the Republican Party. When you just mentioned what happened in Vermont or Michigan or Minnesota. They're still right 50-50 in Minnesota. That means their party's still viable. Ours has lost its brand. It has no brand anymore, and that needs to be rebuilt.
Well, is that because
there is no donor alignment? There is no plan for top of the ticket. There's no real plan for candidates. So let's just put it this way: it's a big opportunity, Dan.
I'm sure you've heard that before. He's
I love
laughing.
that.
He laughs.
Things are so bad. Right, things are so bad, and they're getting worse. And boy, all I see is opportunity as far as
Ted,
my eye can see.
Did the Illinois Republican Party, did they help these candidates? I mean, did they do anything financially to help them and promote them, or did they handpick them? How did it work?
Well, I mean, yes, they help, and I think there's a lot of people out there with good initiative, right? But there's debates about whether one candidate should have been supported more than the other. There's a lot less money, and I agree with Dan. It's not about the money. I mean, money helps everything else equal, but it doesn't help if your brand is wrong and you don't have the right candidates and you don't have a plan. And basically, there is no plan because if you think about it, you try to think about what is the Republican brand in Illinois. What do they stand for? It's kind of hard. You don't hear it, you don't feel it, you don't see it.
I mean, there was all these lurches. I mean, to the point of comparing ourselves to our Midwestern neighbors there in Michigan, Minnesota. There was all the same leftward lurch here, obviously under Jelly Belly, and you couldn't see your way fit to detail the impacts of Pritzker's purge law in a public safety election and a law and order election. You can't see your way fit to talk about the costs of living here while he is spending $500 million to underwrite a Chinese communist-backed EV battery plant in Manteno. I mean, you can't figure out a way to localize the national dynamics that are driving people out and informing their votes. This is so basic, but there is no courage here. And now in the General Assembly that is to come, and maybe they'll start kicking this around, all those noblemen and magistrates in Springfield start kicking this around in veto session, which kicks off today. Maybe but based on the support for that millionaire surcharge at the advisory referendum level on Tuesday, I suppose they'll pick that up and move that along or attempt to come January, right?
Oh, they definitely will. I mean, they have to, and we just wrote about it today. But Pritzker's put out his 5-year forecast for the next 5 years. It's $23 billion deficits in total over the 5 years. Now you can either look at that as a ploy to just pump up the numbers negatively so he can get his progressive tax passed, or you can say, man, that guy wants to keep spending money so badly that he's going to need that progressive tax, and the voters just told him that they're happy with the progressive tax, so let's go do it. So that's what's bad. And I just want to make a point about Republicans making the case. I mean, if you think about it, if you were to choose your opponent, you would want to have an opponent that you're running against that has one of the worst crime records in the country. Certainly, can't stop murders, the worst murder capital in the country, has the highest tax rates on properties, has the highest out-migration rates. The kids can't read. I mean, this would be the ideal candidate for you to run against because they have so many weaknesses. And yet we can't figure out how to exploit that. And in theory, it should be easy, but if there's not a plan around it and a set of principles around which you want to run those campaigns, then it's really hard to win.
Well, I mean, and you get the leadership that you select. So the leaders, McCombie in the House and Curran in the Senate, the rank and file, that's who they selected. So this is the Republican Party that you've got, and there doesn't seem to be sort of like we're talking about where's the indications there's some revolt happening. There's no revolt happening at the local level. There's no revolt happening internally at the state level. So you just have a bunch of people milling about, pretending to be in some sort of opposition to the Jelly Belly agenda when they're really just looking to protect their little piece of turf, which has been the story of the Illinois Republican Party for about the last 25 years, largely has gone unnoticed.
I would take the one positive news out of this, and that's again more of a statewide thing, not a legislative thing. But the fact that 45% of people voted for Trump means that they were willing to cross the line.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Come out, and number two, the fact that you've got bigger margins in Cook County and Chicago, so that lets you know that you can still win a statewide race. So The governorship is out there to be had, and a couple of the others. It's out there. But of course, the predicate to that is having leadership and a plan and a brand. So we're missing those other things, but it's out there.
Well, it was really interesting last week at City Club. There's the City Club where state and city workers come to have a family-style lunch at Maggiano's while listening to one of their fellow apparatchiks. So the panel, the post-election panel, was Brandon Johnson's chief of staff, non-binary, housebroken Republican from the suburbs, Greg Hart, doesn't know what his positions are on anything, lost to Deb Conroy for DuPage County Board, part of the sort of Republican that is the explanation for why DuPage County is a deep blue county now. And Ann Caprara. Ann Caprara, for those who don't know, because why would you, is Jelly Belly's chief of staff. And, there's a lot of hand-wringing and, sorrowful reviews of what happened at the federal level and so forth. Of course, all that pro forma stuff. But something Ann Caprara said there is really indicative of the culture here. And if you don't want to present an alternative path for the state, an alternative vision for what the political culture should be here, well,
I have a religion. It's this democracy and it's this government. And for 24 years of my life, I've been working to make this place a better place, to try to temper my rage at times with hope, which is a hard thing on some days. And I look at her and feel this has been hard because over the last 8 years, I've watched two accomplished, brilliant women. So if you put gender aside and said, give me a list of what you want in the president, they ticked every box. They did everything perfectly. They showed up. They weren't too emotional.
The typical two brilliant women over the last 8 years who were sidelined. So they're still happy to play identity politics because they have been punished for it the way Democrats have been nationally. But the thing that she said at the outset is the most important point. I have a religion. It's this government.
Oof.
That should replace Land of Lincoln as the motto of the state. I have this religion. It's government.
That's scary stuff, and it kind of tells you what if you look at Pritzker's comments, after Trump won, and his whole warrior thing about
you come for my people, you come through me.
Exactly, and he did exactly that. He's the government that's going to take care of all these aggrieved people, all these threatened people. He names them one by one: AAPI, LGBTQ. Black, brown, first generationers, the disabled. He's making sure that he calls out each aggrieved group, and that that they're at risk, but he, the government, will protect them. He will keep them safe, and that's just sounds like she's saying the same thing.
Right, and these dullards in the Republican Party think like the path back to relevance is a fair map. They think it's like it's a mechanical problem. There's no. They're as unreflective as what you're seeing from the Democrats at the national level now. It has nothing to do with what we're doing or not doing. It just has everything to do with somehow, the system is just rigged against us, and there's no way we can win. It's. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I mean, there's no outside of Wirepoints. Where is even the thought leadership, even for those who are not aspiring to public office? Where's the thought leadership of doing things any differently than Illinois, outside of Wirepoints or this show?
Well, I will tell you this, Dan. It's amazing. So, I'm out there looking for them. I'm out there trying to work with them and trying to bring some together. And I found a couple people. But people are still scared. I mean, I think the Civic Committee and the Civic Federation and these groups still have so much power, and they still believe in working with Brandon Johnson, with Governor Pritzker. What they don't realize is that Brandon Johnson and Governor Pritzker are they just got trashed in the elections, right? Whatever they stand for. But there's still these corporate titans, many of them who could be very powerful if they wanted to be, are still scared, and they still won't stand up.
Well, right.
And
So that's never going to happen, which is why leadership is going to have to come from somewhere else if it's ever going to come. But the question of is it ever going to come seems to me a decidedly open one.
Well, I think it's coming. I think it's coming, Dan, because we're seeing for the first time something, and it's and as much as people hated Trump and all that, there's plenty of people who cross the lines to go to him or to what he stands for, or they hated Harris enough that they went to him. And there's some eyes opening in Illinois for the first time, I think, in a long time. But there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done to capture that.
Ted Dabrowski, President, Wirepoints, wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thank you as always.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy.
And Ted, good Georgia Tech went over Miami. That was fun, huh? Ted? Ted doesn't want to talk football because Ted got off.